only work with the local scene, but also worked on the DIY scene as a whole. Had bands from all across the U.S. and the world. Actually played bands from Romania and also some bands from Australia.
Romania?
Yes.
What?
It was Enana. It was ENNAA. And it was actually in Romanian. The stuff actually wasn't in English. And they were a metal band from Romania. And they found me and contacted me.
Holy shit, dude! I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I made a post when I was really getting prominent at the show on the DIY tour page on Facebook, which Facebook's a great platform to kind of use that kind of stuff to get in touch with bands. And I posted that probably the first year I did the show, and it just kind of, people were contacting me left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting contacts from all over, every place. I mean, people from Australia, I had a punk band from Australia that contacted me, had bands from California. Stair Step Kids was one of them from that area, and I played with them quite a bit. And it just all kind of circulated, so I kept getting a bunch of contacts with that.
Hell yeah. What got you started I mean, obviously you probably got into the music scene before the nightly special. What started that
So
spark?
I was big, ever since I was little, I always had to kind of have an outlet. I was big into writing. And I would write here and there from time to time, really focus my energy onto that and kind of have my outlet. As I got older, I started writing more and more. When I got into high school is when it became a major outlet, and my high school teachers were very supportive in me writing whatever I wanted to and going into that. Well, I met Parker. Him and I rekindled around the time. Parker Pickett's in old school.
Fucking Parker, dude.
Yeah.
The Pickett brothers, man.
so that's we went to high school together. Actually, he was a couple grades above me.
I love Parker.
And him and I had a good friendship. Well, we rekindled. I think we met up or something. He ran into me when it was my freshman year of college, and he told me about the Creative Sanctuary, which was a really cool DIY music thing in Alexandria, Indiana. And it was this really beautiful couple, Jen and I'm blanking on the other guy's name. But they're married now, a wonderful family. They live in Indy. But they opened up this place. They lived above the building, and when you walk inside the Creative Sanctuary, she did all of her artwork all over the place, very welcoming. They had a lot of local bands, did all ages shows. Well, I would go there and perform. That's when I first started doing spoken word and performing with that, and then being a part of the scene.
You've done spoken word here in Muncie.
I have. A couple times I got in, once I got into college, I partnered with Moth, and I did a lot of stuff for couplets.
Mm-hmm.
And then I shook up, when it used to be a thing, the other spoken word was in town, not Buttons Poetry, but it was like it wanted to be Buttons. Yeah. Reacting Out Loud, I think that's what it was called. And it was really of a niche audience. And when I read there, the guy that runs it, at the time that ran it, came up to me and told me I couldn't read again.
Why couldn't you read again?
Because I used trigger words that he thought was offensive. So I looked at him and I'm kind of like, well, is anyone offended by it? Because I'd like to talk to him, we can talk it out. And he's like, well, no one complained. And I said, well, then what's the issue? I used rape. And the thing I was talking about, rape of the mind, to kind of like open up, to be provoked, to really like dig deep yourself and bypass your demons and become who you are. Well, he was kind of upset about it, so I sat down and I started writing more. And Parker came out that night with me, and I decided to read this new poem I wrote, and it was basically about them and how their negativity and they're kind of like closing in on being like a very creative involvement environment. And I read it and I flipped off the crowd. They loved it. He wanted me to come back and read more, and they didn't get what the message was about. But, art is something that should be very inclusive, but also at the same time, you should be able to talk how you feel. Release your angst, release the issues that you have and things. With that time, I was really big into the scene. I was basically, as Parker put it, I was the mama for Indian Old School. They'd come over, I'd feed them, we'd hang out. Before Indian Old School, what drew me into them was Khaki Chunks, and I was big around the dictionary scene, Club Yeti, Saba Banks. I grew up around that with the Anderson scene. Well, Creative Sanctuary didn't last long. It eventually had to close down, and that's when I started doing a lot of stuff in Muncie, going to house shows with EGR. I was technically a sophomore, but by Ball State's credit standards, I was a junior. A freshman. I was supposed to be a sophomore, basically a sophomore, but I started out as that, going to Ball State. And I was very involved in the scene. I'm just kind of like, I want to do a radio show. And I want to kind of evolve the scene into it, because it's just a big part of my life, and I really appreciate the outlook and how everyone's really nice to each other. Because what I love about reading and writing and poetry and things is you can really understand an artist, and if you have issues with it, you can find ways to understand why they wrote it that way. What I liked about couplets, I really hope it comes back after all this.
Man, I know Moth is pulling for it. I know she's still pulling for the oh my God, I'm drawing a fucking blank.
The Muncie Makers Market?
Yes, the Makers Market and Yard.
And those were two big things, and I was there for Yard, actually. I sold CDs for Nightly Special. But with that, when I was there, she was very much, people had issues with your work. She wanted you to talk to those people and kind of explain why you use those certain words or why you said things. And we'd say stuff, if there's a trigger warning, we'd mention that and stuff. It was very welcoming and nice. Ever since I was little, I always wanted to do a radio show. And apparently I would tell a lot of people when I was in middle school that I was going to do this and really wanted to do that and yada yada. And I got to college and I'm like, okay, well, how can I do my own specialty show? Well, I get there and finally it was my freshman year of Ball State, but I consider it my sophomore year, and I consider myself, I was a super senior once I graduated college, was you have to do a already program that's already in place. So with them, you can do automation. So you basically just punch buttons to play music and develop your persona, or you could work with news or something like that. So I worked with the news team or the radio station, which was really fun. I really got my side of it. I did entertainment. I was big on reading articles. I even talked about shows locally, kind of try stuff in when Be Here Now was doing a show and tie stuff in that was in the area. And, I was doing all this and going to shows. And I'm thinking to myself, I want to create something for the community, for those that, really don't have a say, and those that, are really trying to do stuff but feel like they're not getting anywhere. And that's when I kind of got the slogan in mind. Because I got the name first, because I want to do a pun on my name. Because it's going to be at night, I want to do a nightly special. It sounds great.
I even did a pun on your name last night. I was on my Facebook, tagged myself. The Muncie music scene is on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, all that. I actually tagged your name. I said my special guest, Hunter, tomorrow night. And then I put LOL because
I read that because it's a good thing to pun off of. And I was like, well, I need a slogan. And I'm just like, form a unity to jumpstart a better community. And I was always making 1% count is things that embed in that. And I was always big about doing that because, everyone has a part of them to contribute to society.
Yeah.
Or to be, and whether it's just being fully percent themselves, that's 1% you have that you can kind of have control over what you want to do. By jumpstarting forming a unity to jumpstart a better community was basically tying scenes together and bringing artists. I didn't stick with one scene that I particularly loved more than another. I wanted to bring everything together. All genres, everything kind of have flooded onto the airwaves.
That's one thing I wanted you on here was because tying it into something personal, jumping off the continuity aspect. When we first heard of the nightly special, one of the first things my band Cocaine Culture heard of was you had rap, you had metal, you had shoegaze, you had alternative, you had spoken word. The diversity in that itself was hey, this guy, we should give this guy a chance. He's talking to us. He talked to us at Be Here Now. He talked to us when we did the show at Village Green Records. So giving you that, man, the diversity in your idea was a big reason, and why we wanted to work with you. I can only assume that's a big reason why other people wanted to work with you too.
A biggest thing in my life in doing what I do, I'm an event planner now. It's what I kind of went to college for in advertising, but I concentrate in event planning of it with the degrees in advertising, is people find my enthusiasm and the way I live my life contagious, and they like my drive, and they like how focused I am on what I want to do. When this show first took off, I pitched the idea to the managers and the people that run the studio at the time. The guy, I really liked him, Devin. He was with the studio for a while during my time there. He's like, I'm down for it. Do your show. He's like, it's going to be a lot of work. The reason being the show was a lot of effort, and I never regret it. is we don't have rights to locals music. You know, that no one's really on a big gig or on like a big label or something. Yeah,
like
to where, you know, they can get the rights to like ASCAP or something. So I had to physically carry forms with me everywhere I went. And I had to have bands sign contracts.
I remember those forms.
Yeah, and it's basically like, yeah, you're not getting paid shit for this, but it's to give yourself exposure on the airwaves. Then once I got the music, every week I had to listen to all the albums. And I had to listen to everything and make sure what was clean to put on air and what wasn't. I even edited some songs myself to make them clean to play on the airwaves because they're some of my favorites. So I had to do all that. So I was literally, during college, I worked 2 jobs. And I did the radio show, basically 3 jobs. I would spend 2 to 3 hours of prep before the show, listen to music, everything, go to 2 or 3 shows on a weekend, and then network with bands, all that. I mean, there'd be days, that's when I lost a lot of my weight during the show, was I wouldn't eat till like 11 o'clock at night because it was school. Then radio stuff in between classes, listen to new bands, contact bands, go to shows, listen to bands there. Some shows, I would hop to multiple shows a night, sign the bands I was interested in, meet new bands, then go to another show and kind of show hop from different places. I would find myself at like Valhalla, and then I'd find myself at Be Here Now, or find myself at Big Shots, you know, and go to different places to hear that kind of music. Well, we had reviews. You get reviews for your show from the executives of the radio station. And it's like, and then you have to basically, they reevaluate whether you think you continue the show to the next semester. And the guy down and looked at me, he's like, you know, this is a lot of work, and I didn't think you were going to pull it off, but you're doing a damn good job. And he really liked it, and then it kind of like started taking off from there. The show had a co-host at one point, because I thought I would need the help. But we really didn't see eye to eye. Person was a good person. It's just his heart wasn't in the scene. And you really got to be dedicated to something like this to really see it flourish and love it for all the bad and love it for all the good.
Well, and
really
tie that in, dude, that from a local musician perspective, you have to love everything that you're doing, because when I got into the scene, dude, I was in high school and everything. Like, once you drop the idea of I'm not necessarily gonna make it famous off this, but I'm doing something, like you said, with art. Music's art. I am doing something for myself. I'm pulling this in. Once you realize that perseverance is going to allow you to be someone that is looked at locally in a good sense or in a bad sense, because I mean, we all get good and bad, like you were saying. Just being a local musician and being someone in your shoes that isn't a local musician but supports local music, dude, that's a lot of heart. That's a lot of drive. Someone that bounces Valhalla, Be Here Now, VGR, Big Shots, dude, that in itself is just someone that is willing to go to 4 different places in a night just to see bands, to get them to sign your paper, to get them to be a part of something. In my eyes, dude, that means a lot to me as the musician, because that means that we got a legitimate supporter.
No, for sure. And that's what it really kind of grew into. First time I was really trying to recruit, I got lucky, and it was the VGR Back to School Bash. And that's when I went. I saw you guys when you were first really starting out, and you had a female vocalist. And
we had a different drummer at that time.
Different drummer too, different drummer. I've seen you through all your phases. And seeing that and seeing all the bands Travis pulled into VGR was cool. And it was nice being in an open space, because you got people that looked at you like, what the hell are you doing? What are you playing? And then people that came and stopped, listened for a minute, and stayed, donated some money, stuff like that, which is really cool to kind of have the spot where VGR is in Muncie. Those that might not know Muncie or know where it's at, you got campus. And then with the throwing a rock, you hit VGR.
Yep.
And so it's basically in the hub of everything, and you got all these passerbyers coming and going from the village, whether it be locals and majority college students. So it's a really prime area for doing shows like that. They also got the cops calling them a couple times because of noise complaints. And that was a big issue. There was party house that was right across the street, and they would actually like call the cops on VGR, even though they play loud rap music, and then they actually like I think flipped the tables at VGR and like damaged some stuff too. And I mean it was interesting. They eventually came to terms. There was new people that came in the house, and things were kosher after that, and it went really well.
Dude, Travis is such a good guy there at
Yes.
VGR. He's turned me on to fucking music that I never even would have thought I would like. It blows my mind that someone would actually flip tables at that guy's place of establishment.
It was a big beef between that just because of like having that kind of collective. When you do something in the arts and you do something you love, you're gonna get a lot of people that are gonna turn heads and things that are looked differently because it is like a counterculture of life.
Yeah.
And people really don't see that as fit for themselves, or just kind of baffled by it because they're afraid to maybe try it themselves, or just don't know it because we're afraid. And we as humans, when we're afraid of something, we tend to have a coping mechanism to either be like, yeah, I should try that, to no, that's stupid, and not give another thought as a coping mechanism for that, kind of like our own fight or flight kind of response to something of the unknown.
Oh yeah.
With the show, I didn't want to focus on one genre. There was too much going on in the area, and I always said a lot of local shows and called it local and things, but I then eventually kind of started going to the term DIY, because when you say local bands or say local, sometimes it can kind of have a bad connotation or leave some bad rest in the mouth. When someone says local, you're thinking you're going to the VFW to hear this old band play these same old covers that are in this dirt bar that don't really care anymore and just kind of like going away. When you use DIY, it's new, it's do-it-yourself, it's innovative, and things are trying. So I kind of switch and kind of use both, because when I say local, I'm talking about local shows and things, and kind of promote that aspect. The hardest thing with the show, and it was really hard to do, was trying to talk about shows and promote shows when I was on air, because we can't promote house shows when I was on the radio because of underage drinking and then illegal substances and stuff that can be out this thing. So
I mean, we both know that there's plenty of fucking pot smokers out there.
Oh no.
And tying this into something fucking political.
Yeah.
Dude, weed should be legal. I'm not a person that partakes in it, but I'm also not someone that judges people that partake in it. But I also understand where the radio station was coming from, because, like you said, due to underage drinking, weed or Molly or whatever have you.
An age on that kind of stuff too. Yeah. It's legal. Weed, a lot of places you got to be 21 to smoke, and that kind of stuff. So they wanted to be safe on that note. So I think I got a way around that was to say, check social media, different stuff like that for anything's upcoming shows. I couldn't say go out and do this, and I couldn't say dates. So I would say this week, and the people that kind of caught on and listened to the show, I would go in order. So let's say my show, I think at one point my show was on a Wednesday, and at one point my show was on a Tuesday. I would basically listen in order from either that night all the way to Sunday for events.
Yeah.
And say that way. Because I say, oh, this week, there's couplets at the Cup, or like, Be Here Now is doing stuff, and I would kind of say that. No, sometimes I couldn't say at the Cup, it'd be like couplets and stuff to say it, and I would promote Be Here Now. Well, Be Here Now, Whitney wanted to be a sponsor of the show. But if somebody would eventually pay for that, the weird logic behind it is I wouldn't be able to promote it as much as I was since they were paid sponsor. I could say their name a couple times in the show and not say about their events because it can tie into like something kind of unethical, which is interesting because.
But he's a sponsor.
Exactly.
You should be able to tag.
So when you say a sponsor, it's like, let's say Pita Pit. Hey, this is the Nightly Special brought to you by Pita Pit, and you could say their slogan. That would be it. You couldn't say other stuff because I think they're worried about getting into like propaganda, so to speak. Like Pita Pit's got this brand new sandwich or stuff like that, where it's like you're only true to that one person. So I just kind of told Whitney, I said, apparently I can only give you the best promotional business. Like, well, this is really dumb. I said, no, I wholeheartedly agree. So yeah, the show never got any sponsorships, which kind of sucked, I guess, a little bit, because it could have brought the station revenue. And then for a while doing the show, I was like, I wonder who all listens. And you just kind of think, it's probably just a few selected few. And
how did the radio give you the demographics on that? How'd the Ball State?
I never knew. kind of thing. I was just doing this because I loved it, and I never really got the specs until it was really out and open with it. I was walking around, and there was like a Jimmy John's driver, and he looked at me and he's like, "Your voice sounds familiar." I said, "Yeah." He's like, "You're on the radio, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "I listen to this all the time when I do my deliveries," and people like kind of started noticing me for it. And a part of it helped with the pull I developed in the music scene with all the bands I became friends with and kind of supported and helped bring to shows. Parker was a big influence with me. Jordan Smith, which you met through Screw Scoos.
Dude, I fucking love Jordan.
Really helped me out with that.
Tying Jordan back into something, man. Jordan's the reason fucking cocaine culture started again.
Really? Did he reach out to you for new stuff?
What happened about coming up on, I want to say like this May or June, our drummer quit.
Yeah.
And dude, when a drummer quits, especially around, I don't know if this is like this in other music scenes, especially local music scenes, finding a drummer is one of the hardest things to do. But our drummer quit, I want to say in like I said, like May, June, about 3 years ago. And that summer, Jordan hit us up about playing a show with him at the Melody Inn there in Indianapolis.
Good old Melody Inn.
And we had been kind of grooming and working towards getting Sean, who's now in the band and who has been in the band for 3 years in September, to at that time just be a fill-in drummer. And it didn't work at first because we didn't really have anything going. But Jordan hit us up and was like, "Hey, I have this show. I want you guys to play. I know that you're out of drummer, but I'm still going to let this offer be there." And then we were able to push that to Sean. Once that show happened at the Melody Inn, that same night, Sean was like, "Dude, I'm your guys' full-time drummer. Like, this is awesome. I love playing this music." He learned our whole set in like 2 months.
And that was like the core like cocaine culture songs, that was Muff, aka Muffler Shop. We'll get more of that later, and different stuff that you guys did when you had Tom in the band. And I remember hearing about the show from you and from Jordan. Like, you guys came to Indy. It was your first time playing Indy too, wasn't it?
It was our first time playing the Melody Inn.
Okay.
As Cocaine Culture, we had played at the Emerson.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
I can't remember the name of this place right now. It's probably due to me, the fact I've been fucking drinking for like 3 hours. But there was this place we played. For the life of me, I can't fucking remember the name. But it had like a locker room.
State Street Pub?
No. I had played there in a previous band I was in, and
there's White Rabbit. There's State Street Pub. There's the Melody Inn. There's the Pioneer, which typically wouldn't have that kind of style of music you're in.
The bar we played at had a locker room, actually, and like a legitimate locker room. Like you could go in, there was lockers.
I feel like it's State Street Pub. Maybe I'm thinking
that could be it, dude.
I haven't been to that one.
I'm not exactly sure, but we had played there and we had played at the Emerson, which Tom was in the band.
Emerson was always opening to metalheads or of that genre.
But Jordan opening up the Melody Inn, me as a person that had been involved locally for God knows how long. I mean, my first local show was in like 99, fucking showing my age. I remember punk rock nights at the Melody Inn and being able to go see...
Still a thing too, which is impressive.
Oh, dude. Pre-COVID, I wanted to spend more time there. Post-COVID, whenever the fuck post-COVID is, I want to spend more time there. But I had always wanted to play at the Melody Inn. And that was one thing I pushed when Jordan approached us with the fact, you guys are going to play at the Melody Inn, you're going to be playing with me and a couple other bands. We had already had a lot of trust in Jordan because around that time, we had actually already done a show with you on the nightly special. And we met Jordan through doing that with you, also meeting him through Parker, through Den Dwellers, and
community builds that way really quickly.
Yes. And Jordan was just a very, like, vital person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he realizes this, but he came in at a good time for the band, because we weren't doing shit for like 3 months. And then Jordan just pops in my DMs, and I'm like, man, this guy's right. Like, this show would be cool. We hit up Sean. We start grinding out the set. And thanks to Jordan, who obviously, thanks to him for you as well, getting you involved, man, he brought my band back to life. And apparently the dude helped you when it comes to the nightly special.
He got me in, so I knew him for a little bit through Parker, and I would also like help him run shows. I was the doorman. I did a lot of stuff helping him with that when I could, and doing that, and really taught me the kind of the ethics you need to run a show correctly, I guess is the way to put it, and that's something I feel very strongly about. I'll get into that a little bit later in the road, just to kind of follow the chronological order of things you're wanting to go about. But, you know, when I came into Muncie, and I came into that music scene slowly coming in, and I would go to basically, Jordan would call it, Parker would call it, was Anderson Takeover at Be Here Now, where all the Anderson bands would play. It would be like Den Dwellers,
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones Jr., yes, that was a thing. And then Dictionary Scene, and then Hell's Orphans would all come out and play. And, you know, at the time, the music scene locally, Muncie and Anderson, it was dead. There was far few between.
Dude, there was no tie-ins. And that's something I didn't realize. Before Cocaine Culture, I was a metal musician. Mm-hmm. We never really played in Anderson. But when I switched to Cocaine Culture, who's playing that shoegaze, heavy alternative type music, I didn't realize that style of music was real prominent in Anderson. Mm-hmm. And
a lot of shoegaze in Anderson. I really never...
We discovered around the same time you're talking about that Anderson was the place to be at.
It was getting there. You know, when I was doing the thing, that's when Alexandria had Prayer Sanctuary, and that kind of ended. Well, then the lovely people of the Burdock House, Josh and Sibylla, started that going. And that really became a scene of itself, really promoting shows, doing all ages events, having all kinds of music play, doing spoken word. And then we slowly kind of like crossed the two together. I remember some bands would play in Muncie, then go play at Burdock House or vice versa to do like tours and stuff. That was like touring bands coming and trying to play DIY shows. And I noticed the scene started forming, getting bigger once I was doing the show. I never really gave myself the credit of that, and I always hate kind of giving myself credit because it like, I feel like, no, it was always there. But like, you gotta give yourself more credit. So like, I'm gonna, you know, not be humble for a second, but I really
don't be humble.
Yeah. But I noticed more after the show ended that how much of an impact it had on the scene. When I was doing the show and running music, a guy, Brandon Gick, who does Lame Brain, before Lame Brain, he was in Arcadia, and then now he's in a really good band, Porch Cat. They've been taking off really well. They actually placed last year, or year before that. With COVID, everything's been blurring together with years. They got like 5th or 4th place for Battle of the Bands in Indy. They placed really well doing that. They were playing against some bands that have been around the indie scene for a while. And they did a really good job on that. I helped him put together the first basement show that later became Lame Brain. I had contacted Jordan and some other guys to come play. The house is still here in Muncie. It's right by Jackson Street, Friendly Packaged Liquors. I don't know how that house hasn't been condemned yet because it looks awful on the outside. It's real shoddy inside. The basement was a hazard to go down in, but that's where the shows were. And you know, a lot of people did basement shows. That's where you had the most room. It was concrete. It was sweaty. It was dark. It was damp, and that's where all the shows happened because you know we're not a big enough part to really have it upstairs. And helping with that was great. I ran door for it, got beers for the bands, sold some beer, make some extra money for like the shows and stuff, and that like really helped out with the scene. And then I started doing shows, I think around that time. or a little after that. My first show that I officially hosted in Muncie was at a guy I met. He's just like, yeah, my first one to do shows. We know how to do it. So, well, I can run it for you because I lived in apartments. I couldn't have shows there. And Nightly Special kind of did their own show. It was like a summer fest or something. I forget what I called it. It was really cool artwork. I did myself, posted it. It was Ripped from the Roots opened for me. I got in contact with them through Moth. And then it was Guilt, which they were an emo queer punk band from Florida. I had Indian Old School. And then you guys, wasn't it, at that one too? Did you play?
I think so.
Was it that one? I can't remember. It might have been that one. Or I know it was the second one. I know for sure. That was when you guys play with Waxjaw.
I think we were in contention for the first one, but I think there was a date that
the date consumed, and I think that's how I got Ripped from the Roots or something, and I had that play.
Yeah, you initially hit us up, and then we were like, we want to, but there's another date.
That's what it was, and then I put you in mind for a future show. But yeah, no, that show. Man, Door, the biggest thing with Door, and what I was talking about earlier with Jordan, what I learned from him, is you really have to be a stickler at Door if you really want the bands to get money. And getting money is really not the half of it, because it really isn't much. Bands will typically, before I started really doing shows, I noticed a 4 to 5 piece band will get $20 to $30 in their pocket.
Bro, that's even...
And that's gas, and that covers, that's even on a good day.
Yeah.
So, and... I was like, well, I kind of don't like hearing that, And part of the reason with that is those shows, they never have a designated Door person. It's always like tip what you want kind of thing, and then they pull the money. Of course, typically for the most part, you want to give the touring band most of the money, so to speak, and go from there. Well, that first show, I had everybody, make sure people pay. Bands would always bring a +1. A lot of bands would think like, yeah, I can bring my girlfriend along, she doesn't have to pay. I said, no, she got to pay. Or, like, he's got to pay if it, if somebody's boyfriend, because you're supporting the scene. This is good to help support everybody from here. So I got people to pay. I got bands water, and then if they were of age, I bought them beer. And we had beer to give for the bands and stuff. That show, I want to say local bands got $20 to $30, got plenty of beer and water for drink. The touring band, I made the touring band $100, and they sold merch. And that was the most they got on tour. And they traveled from Florida going all the way up to the Midwest. So they were super excited about that. And I was thrilled. And I was like, I want to start doing more shows. So then the show later, it's like a following year or that fall, I contacted you guys to play a show. Yeah. And it was going to be at that same house. But there was a falling out with the people and I'd be on the patio. So then...
We ended up playing at someone's living room.
Living room, it was one of the Aarons I knew, Aaron Davis, who was in the band Kilgalls. He let me house it at his place. So what I decided to do this time is, if I ID people, let's charge $10 if they have their ID, and they get unlimited jungle juice and beer the whole night. And then if they're not 21, it's $5, or if they don't want to drink, that's fine. Or a lot of people bring their own booze. BYOB typically. Let's do that. Made a killing that night. I think I gave you guys around $30 to $50, which you wound up giving to the other band, Waxjaw, for their tour. I gave them $120 that night. I was able to pay local artists a good amount and have people have drinks too.
Man, the thing with that, with us giving our money, I was the main one because I also helped manage the band. When you told me where they were from.
West Virginia.
And then you were like, they're on tour, they're doing this, they're doing that. In my eyes, man, I was just like, where you booked this at's 5 minutes down the road from where we practice.
Yeah.
I was cool. You gave us $20, and then you were like, actually...
I'll give you guys more, that's right, yep.
Because what had happened is everyone bailed, and I stuck around because I wanted to watch more of the band.
That's why I wanted to give you the money early, that's right,
yep. You gave me $20 early, and then you were like, actually, dude, I got like 40 more I can give you. And I was like, no, dude.
That's right, give it to the band.
Give it to the band that is here from fucking a couple states away. And that's one thing I always enjoyed about you, and that's one thing I enjoyed about the scene that you helped introduce us to, is no matter what happened, you always helped take care of the bands. And no matter where they came from,
that was a big thing.
Muncie, Anderson, West Virginia, Florida, no matter what, the whole spectrum, dude. you made sure the bands were taken care of, or the Anderson scene, or Jordan, Parker, whoever. Whoever was running the show, you guys made sure the bands were taken care of.
And I learned that from Jordan and Parker, for sure, with those things. Band from Florida and the band from West Virginia, Waxjaw and Guilt, I housed them both at my apartment complex. I got my roommates at my house. There's 3 of us. I don't know how government agreed to it, to have anywhere from a 4 to 6-piece band crash in our living room. But they were cool with it, and touring bands, the bands we had, I mean, some of them had one of the best. I mean, they were so respectful. They were nice.
Yeah.
Guilt came in, like, hey, do you mind if we cook some food? I was like, we don't mind. They did all their dishes. They didn't leave anything in the sink of our dishes. They brought in, they had a giant, like, Rubbermaid or, like, tote of food, of like mac and cheese, ramen, things that they had with them for their tour. They pulled out of their van to cook, and they're like, can we do a little laundry? Like, yeah, we don't mind. Did a little laundry, went to bed, we went out for breakfast together that morning, took them to some places around Muncie, the Cup, and took them to Two Cats when that was a thing. And then Waxjaw, I had them try Pizza King pizza. They never had that, and they really liked it. Yeah, it's from West Virginia.
That's crazy.
Because I had leftovers, so you guys can have this in my fridge, and they were cool, super nice to hang out with. Still in touch with a lot of people today, actually, from those bands. We'll just kind of shoot the shit and talk occasionally.
Dude, that's one thing I was wondering about with the nightly special. You having all them different bands, like, who all do you maintain contact with? Dude, I know us and like Indian Old School and Jordan with Israeli Murder Planes and what he's doing right now.
Locally, I'm pretty much in tune with everybody. When I see them, I try to keep in contact. Follow everyone on social to see what they're doing, see what shows are coming up next, and when I can maybe try to make one out or go to one. As for like touring stuff, we're friends, we're social, we're Facebook friends, we're like acquaintances in that matter. I'll like comment on a post, talk to them that way. I never reach out fully, so to speak, with that, unless it's more my scene. I thought about reaching back out to some to like try to get them shows here again. Some bands I'd really like to see back in the area. Of course, with everything happening, it's kind of hard. And also with some bands trying to find the means or the money to be able to do tour again. Because, I mean, going to tour like that and being a local or like a DIY band, you barely make money from shows. When I gave that one band $100, it was like they won the lottery. I mean, it's impressive to see like just that kind of hospitality that people don't get off.
I can remember that from my own stints when I would travel with bands, depending on which band I was in at the time, or even filling in as a bass player for different bands. If you would have been someone that one of the random bands I was in before the nightly special, from like 2008 to like 2016, dude, if you would have handed us $100, we would have been like, dude, we would have been fucking bowing on our knees like crazy, dude. Like,
I eventually wanted to state what I can offer for bands. I kind of wanted to, like, the bands that were touring, what I can guarantee them. And I was able, people that are touring, I was like, you know what I can guarantee? I can guarantee you $50. Guarantee you water, guarantee you beer, whatever you want to drink. I said, I'll get that for you, of age, of course. And, if you're in a place to stay, I can get you a place to stay. And they're like, yeah. And most of the time, every time, I've added a couple more, even doubled or tripled what they expect to get when they came out. So, like you said, like Waxjaw, they got the 20 that night.
Waxjaw sticker on my bass.
I used to listen to their cassette of the EP that they had at that time, which is still great. I still listen to this day. But yeah, I think I was around $80 for them. And then when you told me to keep that 40, I went ahead and kept that and gave it towards them. A lot of things, what I noticed in the scene doing the show, and what I'm learning with different stuff, going to other house shows in the area, is you want to have people indoor. They wanted to be a big party. And some bands would only get $5 to $10 that drove like 30 minutes away. I'm like, this is kind of unacceptable. And they didn't have any water for them, and no booze or anything, which not a big thing if you don't have that, but like they didn't have any water or Coke or something off. I'm like, well, this is not cool.
Yeah, dude, you gotta have soda or at least water.
Is there something, or something for them and give some hospitality. Well, then I found out some people were taking some stuff off the top and not giving stuff to bands and pocketing as expenses. To help doing the show. Yeah, there's a big thing with that in the scene, and I was really against that. Like for me, I would be in debt for shows. If I wanted to run a show, I'd put back money from my paychecks, 30, 40 bucks here and there. I would spend about $100 for beer, for water, and stuff for the bands. Waxworks asked me, you guys drink anything in particular? We like whiskey. Bought them a half gallon of Evan Williams that night. And
I remember doing some shots with them.
Yeah. Bought them the whole the handle of Evan Williams, and one of their drummer got so trashed. He's like, "Thank you, Hunter." He's like, "I apologize." He like threw up in the bathroom. I said, "Dude, you're good." At my apartment, I'm just glad you guys are having a good time. I wanted to show you, the proper Hoosier hospitality, so to speak. And that's like the big thing I had. So like when I found out, people that are doing shows in the area, that I would go, and I eventually learned quickly. I hate saying this because I feel bad about it, but at some shows I would never put money into the tip jar or like the donations. I would just go and give it to one of the bands. Whatever band was touring, I'd be like, here's $20, like take this, go to your show kind of thing. Keep that. I remember a buddy of mine I met through the music scene who was on American Idol when he was 16, Alexander Wren, folky, wonderful singer, still DIY to this day. Actually makes money off of Spotify, believe it or not, doing his own thing, and does shows and has done house shows through an app. I forget what it was. You could host like pop-up house shows. I forget the name. It's kind of prominent, and I would follow it quite regularly on social media to see if shows and make a living. And I got him to play in Muncie a couple times, actually. First time he came, I was able to kind of get him a show on the whim. Aaron Jekowitz, he used to play in Kilgalls, and he was doing a show, intimate acoustic show at his house. I was like, hey, I can toss Alex on. He came in from Nashville, and we did an interview for the nightly special, and then went out to the show that night. It was memorizing. I cried like twice. His music's beautiful. Wanted to come back from Muncie for a tour. Came back, and I did the same thing. I was able to kind of like toss him on another show or put him in direction to people. Hey, these guys are running shows. And I put him in connection with all these other house show venues that were putting stuff on. But then it got to the point where, like I was saying with that, with some bands I found out they weren't making much money or people weren't donating and stuff. I was kind of like, I don't like hearing that because, like, I told bands good faith to go in contact with you, and I don't want to hear them get mistreated or something like that, And then it gets to the point where people would treat this scene as a big party, go to get wasted, hook up, shit like that, and then go home and not really care for the music. So going to shows towards the end of my college years, house shows, the dynamic was shifting. And it's just kind of like, what I was talking about, I guess I kind of being preachy with forming a unity to jumpstart a better community and make your 1% count was kind of like fading. Like people, house shows were becoming popular, which wasn't a bad thing, but people losing sight of the message behind it and kind of losing the integrity of the whole point to do shows to begin with. And it was becoming a fad. The counterculture became a fad. And that's what I was noticing with the scene. A lot of it was like freshmen to sophomores that wanted a place to drink and kind of a safe haven would kind of go to do that. And then they get to the point where like, oh, they're my friends, they don't need to pay kind of thing, where it's just like, you got 2 local bands playing and they got 10 friends wouldn't pay or stuff. That would kind of like, you would see that kind of drift and happen. The whole counterculture aspect that I like to the show is when you get niche with someone and being part of a culture that you feel welcomed by, or even being counter to what like the norm is, so to speak, is you're very welcome and people are very nice to you. Like you're talking about with Jordan, how I was to you guys, Jordan was to you and vice versa. It's great to have that. And that's what gave me the idea. Was around my last years per se of doing the nightly special, I released a compilation.
Yes.
Called the Counterculture Jukebox.
Let's pause on that moment because my app can only do an hour.
Okay.
And we will pause at 45 minutes. I gotta use the restroom real quick.
Oh, I didn't realize we've been talking that long. I was trying to...
We're still recording on this because this just records forever.
Okay.
But that's all good.
Shit, I didn't hear that. It's been that long. I guess, huh?